Tonight, an AFL umpire arrested in a Brownlow medal betting scandal, the latest live. Homes swamped, drivers rescued as storms dump a month's rain in 6 hours. Flooding derails a giant freight train near Geelong. Early poll problems as Victorians cast the first votes. Promises on TAFE, questions on gas. A 10-year-old girl in a heartbreaking MND shock. And the big mistake that has e-scooter riders taking dangerous wrong turns and causing traffic chaos.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. The Brownlow medal is embroiled in a betting scandal with an AFL umpire among 4 men arrested in police raids. It's alleged the umpire passed on top secret information that was used to bet on matchday votes.
Kept in a locked briefcase and hand-delivered under heavy security, not even AFL bosses know the results of the Brownlow votes.
All those checks and balances are in place until the Brownlow vote form then turns up on Brownlow medal night, where they are opened for the first time.
Police are investigating whether an umpire shared that information with mates, who then used it to bet on individual matches. Suspicious round-by-round bets prompted a betting agency to notify the AFL after the count. Police arrested 2 men in Glenroy, 1 in Oak Park and another in Druin. There were also raids in Kilsyth, Craigieburn and Doreen, with mobile phones and laptops seized. All men have been released but are expected to face charges. The umpire with engaging in corrupt conduct. The other 3 with using that corrupt conduct to make bets. Former umpires united in shock that protocol may have been breached.
I'm actually quite devastated that this is even being spoken about. It's in your DNA that the Brownlow vote is not ever spoken about.
And that's why the award's been so protected and sacrosanct for so many years, for over 100 years.
There's no suggestion the scandal impacted the result of this year's medal or that corrupt bets were placed on Patrick Cripps to win.
I think it does cast a bit of a dark cloud over the umpiring process, but certainly most umpires today would be disappointed with what's happened.
Peter Bedford won the 1970 Brownlow medal, the first year the count was televised. He says he wouldn't want to see the voting rights taken away from umpires.
It's stood the test of time, I think from Kaji Greaves' day till the present, and I think Patrick Cripps, a well-deserved winner of the medal.
Detectives are working with the League and Sport Integrity Australia, investigating how much money was won.
And Emma O'Sullivan joins us now. Emma, when are the 4 expected to be charged?
Mitch, all 4 men have been questioned and released. It's expected they'll be formally charged in coming weeks. The offences connected to corrupting a betting process are serious. They carry maximum penalties of 10 years jail. Those we spoke to today were clearly shocked that the confidentiality surrounding the game's most prestigious individual award could potentially have been breached, and they're concerned about flow-on effects for the game and umpires. Mitch.
Emma O'Sullivan at Police Headquarters, thank you. Wild storms have pounded Melbourne's west and the Mornington Peninsula, flooding homes and stranding drivers. They dumped a month's rain in just a few hours, sparking dramatic rescue missions and a warning that the danger is far from over.
An urgent rescue mission from above. Police, Air Wing and SES workers raced to help a driver late this afternoon, winching him to safety after he was trapped on the roof of his submerged ute at Maud near Geelong. It's capped off a wild 24 hours across Victoria, the Mornington Peninsula, hardest hit. A month's rain fell in just 6 hours, flooding properties.
Our house is underwater, it's just totally flooded.
Turning backyards into swimming pools.
Oh my God.
And swamping major roads. Teresa Lincoln woke to find her safety beach home isolated.
As you can probably see, I cannot open my gates, and my car gate's an electric gate anyway, so I'm not going anywhere.
Have you ever seen it like this?
Never. And I go back to when this was dirt roads.
More than 450 roads across the state closed, causing peak hour mayhem in Derrimut and beyond. Anita Weaver's Mount Martha home was inundated just before 5 this morning.
It just happened that quickly. Water everywhere.
Ever seen anything like it?
Never. I've been here for nearly 30 years.
Residents are blaming inaction from local government. What's your message to your council?
Fix the drainage.
We have drains and we accept that they're our drains, but obviously you can't make drains that deal with this sort of rainfall. It's just impossible.
This Mornington Peninsula property has only just been renovated after it was ruined by floods in January. Heartache too for Heather Creek. Tell me about this carpet.
It's been down a month.
Brand new.
Yeah, brand new.
In Rosebud, a mammoth clean-up is already underway.
Now I know how the people feel up north. You know, it's bloody sad. So all the kids' stuff is ruined.
Within 10 minutes, the whole backyard was a river.
The erosive power of these floodwaters is also causing problems. These residents needed to reinforce the end of their driveway this morning just so they could get their cars out. This man tried and failed. His Mazda stranded.
The car is in a very sticky situation.
Debris surrounded the Mount Martha beach boxes, while the sheer volume of water destroyed crops in Werribee, devastating farmers.
All that there, that's all taking all the goodness out too.
That's annoying then, eh?
That is, you know, it's another cost we don't need.
This flood emergency is still far from over.
Paul Dowsley joins us now. Paul, the wild weather is again affecting water quality around the bay.
Mitch, the EPA has warned that all 36 beaches that it monitors have poor water quality. People should not be swimming in Port Phillip Bay tomorrow or today, at least until maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. We need to find out, maybe Wednesday, find out more as this water comes through the stormwater drains and into the bay. In terms of rain, there are still showers expected across the next few days, but the real danger zone is this weekend, particularly Saturday night, when there is localised torrential rain possible again. Mitch?
Paul Dowsley at Mount Martha, thank you. And Victoria's relentless rain is being blamed for a major train derailment near Geelong. The 55-carriage train was left in a crumpled mess, but somehow the drivers walked away unharmed.
At 5:30 this morning, half the 1.7 kilometre long freight train had crossed a flooded culvert when it collapsed. The middle section of the train toppled down the embankment. 16 of the train's 55 carriages derailed. Some were empty, some carried timber. The train was heading to Melbourne from Perth via Adelaide. Fortunately, there were only 2 people on board.
Both drivers are at the front of the train and they weren't injured and they weren't impacted.
Just a loud bang and it just stopped. A very unusual noise.
And when Gus went outside...
Well, it looked like a kid had been playing with train tracks and they throw them up in the air in the lounge room and they just landed.
Locals say 75 millimetres of rain fell here in the early hours of the morning. Floodwaters covered the Hamilton Highway and poured through this drain all the way round to a culvert underneath the railway tracks, and that's where the incident occurred.
Still too early to know the exact cause. As the Commissioners mentioned, investigations are underway. We do know that there was heavy rainfall and some flash flooding.
Locals say the area floods regularly and they've always worried about the rail line.
It was always going to happen, and finally it has, so there you go.
It's predominantly a freight line, but the daily passenger service from Melbourne to Adelaide also uses it.
If it had been a passenger train and a similar thing had happened, it'd be a terrible situation.
And Nick McCallum joins us now. Nick, the derailment is set to cause transport chaos for days.
Peter, removing this train will be an enormous task. There's the carriages which remain upright. Then about 400 metres away, there's the 16 derailed carriages. So first of all, officials must get cranes in here and remove the derailed carriages. Then they have to repair and rebuild around 500 metres of track. Then they have to pull very slowly the rest of the train back to Melbourne. All that will take at least 7 days. And of course, all services on this line have been suspended until all that work is finished. Peter.
Nick McCallum at Inverleigh near Geelong, thank you. A 4-year-old girl has been hit and killed by a car in Melbourne's west. The girl was struck near the Pacific Werribee shopping centre just after 9 o'clock last night. She was airlifted to hospital but could not be saved. The 20-year-old driver stopped and spoke to police. He has not been charged. Victoria's polling booths are officially up and running with the first votes flowing in, despite early problems at booths across the state. They swung into operation as the major leaders pushed promises on TAFE and gas.
Day one of early voting and Victorians weren't wasting any time, even as 21 booths opened late due to flooding and problems printing ballots. And while votes were being cast, the leaders were still out trying to win them.
I won't spill it, don't worry. There's too much pressure on me.
Matthew Guy has promised to quarantine 100% of new gas found in Victoria to drive prices down.
We're trying to preserve Victorian gas for Victorians.
His gas guarantee is a gas lie and is absolutely gaslighting Victorians.
And the reason being,
you physically cannot reserve gas within a state because of something called the Commonwealth Constitution.
Gas is traded nationally, and generally we don't put restrictions on people buying things from one state and taking them to another state. We don't have Queensland bananas kept for Queenslanders.
Still, the Liberals are committed to the plan.
We'll look at it when we get into government, but let me
say you do it within 100 days. Surely you've got an idea of how you do it.
We will ensure that Victorians get to benefit from that gas.
The Labor leader was promising to make TAFE free for all Victorians.
It won't matter what your prior qualification was. It won't matter what your prior learning was.
It potentially will enable a further 2 million Victorians to access free TAFE.
Daniel Andrews was still spruiking the return of the SEC.
That system, that replacement of those private companies who are leaving, that's the way to get the best outcome.
But the Grattan Institute says more detail is needed on how the SEC will work.
We haven't seen any detail yet about exactly how this organisation is going to be structured, how it's going to play with the rest of the energy market and all of the other players who are in there.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
One of Melbourne's most exclusive private schools has been evacuated, with students sent home following a bomb scare. Police were called to Scotch College around 1:30 today following reports of a suspicious item. The bomb squad examined the item and declared the area safe. Australia's worst female serial killer could be one step closer to clearing her name. Kathleen Folbig was convicted of murdering her 4 children. Now an inquiry will examine if a rare genetic condition could have played a role.
When Kathleen Folbig smothered her children, she intended to kill them. That's what a sentencing judge said 19 years ago. But Folbig is now challenging that finding and the 30-year punishment that came with it.
She's anxious like the rest of us because we're all hoping that the judicial system is capable of processing all of the scientific and mental health related information that's before them.
Evidence that wasn't available in 2003 when Kathleen Folbig stood trial over the deaths of Caleb, Patrick, Sarah and Laura.
The deaths all occurred when the only person at home or awake was Ms. Folbig.
Doctors now claim 2 of the children may have inherited a genetic mutation causing an irregular heartbeat and death.
No expert is expected to tell Your Honour that the CALM2 G114 variant definitely caused the death of either Sarah or Laura Folbig.
Today, one did say it was possible. The variant has unpredictable and sudden onset, so you go from being completely well to being unconscious.
If the Honourable Tom Bathurst finds reasonable doubt, the case will go back to the Court of Criminal Appeal, where his final report will be tendered as evidence and taken into consideration.
Meaning an acquittal or early release for Kathleen Folbig could be well over a year away. Leonie Ryan, 7 News.
Medibank is tonight staring down what could emerge as Australia's biggest ever class action. 15,000 people have registered for the legal fight, among them domestic violence victims and police officers, worried for their safety if addresses are exposed.
A lot of people think data breaches are about bank accounts, but there are lives at risk.
Today, information including the mental health records of 500 patients was released onto the dark web. Melbourne is rallying to help a 10-year-old girl dealt a rare and devastating health blow. Bronte Cousins is the only Australian child to be diagnosed with MND, and her mother's heart-wrenching plea for help has touched a chord with generous strangers.
10-year-old Bronte is one of only 3 children in the world known to have MND.
I'm holding Bronte semi-conscious in my arms. She said to me, "It's my neuro disease," and my heart just broke. And our world shattered.
Bronwyn Cousins is already a full-time carer for a 14-year-old disabled son. A year ago, the catastrophic diagnosis, Bronte's extremely rare mutation of MND.
It got to the point where I had to say to her, "I'm really sorry, but you're not going to live as long as your friends."
Her mum says she's the only child in Australia with this type of disease.
That's the absolute worst thing, is I can't stop it. There's no medicine, there's no treatment, there's no cure. I don't know how long she has.
Sweetie, wash your hands, please.
Not being able to work, the desperate mother reached out to 3AW's Neil Mitchell for help. One person donated a wheelchair-friendly car so Bronte can get to and from specialist appointments. Another listener also offered $10,000 in cash.
I can't just turn my back on this situation. I've got to do something, and I've got to help.
I've been doing this work for over 30 years, and even this morning when Bronwyn shared her story, I actually got quite teary while I was on the phone with Neil.
They're overwhelmed by the generosity of the local community and have set up a GoFundMe page for anyone else who wishes to help.
It's life-changing for us, and we're so grateful.
Bronte is a huge Harry Potter fan. Her only wish is to see the Hogwarts magical castle in the UK. Kathleen O'Connor, 7 News.
Quite incredible. Tim Watson is here to preview sport, and Tim, Dave Warner has revealed his retirement plans.
That's right, Mitch. He's planning his exit from the game. We'll tell you what's in store shortly. Also, the Magpies midfield star reveals one more hurdle he has to overcome before he's raring to go. The Socceroos settle into their new home for the World Cup. Daniel Ricciardo's season goes from bad to worse in Brazil. And Greg Norman has announced big new golfing plans. Mitch, that's all coming up in sport.
OK, we'll see you then. Thank you, Tim. There are new details on the ambush murder of a Croydon dad. Next, bikies accused of stalking and gunning down an innocent man on Eastlink. Also coming up, a family asking for help in a desperate search for a missing 28-year-old. A $126 million win for bank customers taken for a ride on credit cards and loans. Later, Australia's health time bomb set to explode.
And now we rug up for a cold outbreak. I'll show you how chilly it'll be later in 7 News.
Police hold grave concerns for a missing Abbotsford man who was last seen walking along Victoria Street on October the 5th. The search for 28-year-old Owen is centred along the Yarra River.
We just want to make sure that he's okay, that he's safe, he's well, and to let him know that he's not in any trouble, that we just want to find him.
Anyone with information on Owen's whereabouts is urged to call police. A court has heard new details about the ambush murder of an innocent father on Eastlink. It's alleged 2 bikie club members stalked Paul Vergona before gunning him down, then Googled the crime.
A grieving family still searching for answers 3 years on from a shocking freeway shooting. Fruiterer Paul Vergona was gunned down in November 2019 as he drove along the Eastlink freeway on his way to work. His body found strapped into the driver's seat with his engine still running. Aaron Ong and Josh Ryder have been charged with the father's murder, Ong appearing in court today for the first day of his trial. The jury heard both Ong and Ryder had links to a motorcycle club, but Vergona did not. Prosecutor Mark Gibson telling them there was nothing in Mr Vagona's background to explain why he was targeted and killed. Ong maintains he is not guilty, but the prosecution says he Googled the shooting just hours after Mr Vagona's death. The court hearing, he searched Melbourne breaking news and shooting Eastlink on his housemate's laptop. The jury are set to view more than an hour of CCTV footage showing the men's movements on that night. The court hearing cameras captured the pair staking out Mr Vagona's home before leaving and following his van to work. Ong's defence team will address the court tomorrow. Estelle Greepink, 7 News.
Anthony Albanese will become the first Australian Prime Minister in 6 years to meet China's President Xi Jinping. The PM confirmed bilateral discussions to restore the relationship will take place just as he landed in Bali for the G20 summit.
The diplomatic dance is about to get serious.
The G20 meeting comes at a critical time for the international community.
Anthony Albanese's arrival in Bali more elegant than the Indonesian president's wife tripping on her dress. Joko Widodo will meet Mr Albanese tonight, deepening a fast-developing friendship.
I had very fruitful discussions with President Widodo in Phnom Penh, and I'm looking forward to our bilateral meeting.
As attention narrows in on the world's two competing giants, US President Joe Biden and China's Xi Jinping due to meet tonight. An encounter that could shift the axis of a fractious world, beset by war, energy and food crises, and pounded by inflation.
I've always had straightforward discussion. There's never any miscalculation about where each of us stand.
The meeting, a precursor to Anthony Albanese's own, the anticipated reconnection of Australia and China at a leadership level, confirmed.
Tomorrow I will be having a bilateral meeting with Chinese President Xi, and I'm looking forward to that constructive meeting.
After his polite encounter with Premier Li Keqiang at ASEAN, the official Chinese news agency today declaring China is ready to meet Australia halfway. From Australia's point of view, halfway is a lot further than where the relationship has been heading in recent years, and that is nowhere. For Anthony Albanese, this G20 meeting just got a lot more significant even before it begins. The G20 leaders confronting the real possibility of a global recession. In Bali, Mark Riley, 7 News.
Some of Australia's biggest banks have agreed to a $126 million payout over suspect insurance. Law firm Slater and Gordon says customers with the Commonwealth Bank, ANZ and Westpac were misled over insurance they paid for when taking out credit cards or personal loans.
Hundreds of thousands of CBA, ANZ and Westpac customers will be impacted by this settlement.
Slater and Gordon says it will contact any eligible customers. Cruise ships are sailing into difficult times again. Next on 7 News, they're back in Melbourne but facing new woes. Also how thugs are ducking and weaving to beat coward punch laws. Safety under scrutiny after a Tesla tore through the streets at high speed. And an emotional moment for King Charles at a Remembrance Day service. Anti-violence campaigners say coward punch thugs aren't being locked up for long enough. Victorians convicted under coward punch legislation face a minimum of 10 years behind bars, but there's only been a handful of convictions in the past decade.
It's really important that people understand that this kind of an offence is a really serious offence.
A new campaign has been launched targeting men in the lead-up to the festive season. The Majestic Princess cruise ship was welcoming passengers in Melbourne today, just 1 week after a COVID outbreak on board the ship. Cruising holidays have hit troubled waters, a fourth COVID wave threatening the industry's revival.
The Majestic Princess docked in Melbourne today following a mass COVID outbreak last week. A number of positive passengers are still isolating on board. Operators deep cleaning the ship, preparing for the next influx of travellers.
Took an extra 4 hours to get on and they did a deep clean, and that seems to have worked beautifully.
800 of more than 4,000 plus passengers tested positive on Saturday, midway through a 12-day voyage. The majority disembarked in Sydney.
If we didn't see it on social media, we wouldn't have known about it. But there's been a lot of talk about their procedures in wearing masks and cleaning.
I think this is the new world. There are a whole range of issues and challenges that COVID's presented us with.
It's the largest outbreak since the Ruby Princess docked in 2020. New figures show the industry is rebounding strongly.
From the moment that Sydney announced that cruises were back early on this year, booking for cruises have already doubled.
81% who have cruised before are likely to do so again in the coming years, up 8% from this time last year. Of those Australians who've never stepped foot on a cruise, 56% say they're open to giving it a try.
It's yet to be seen whether the latest COVID outbreaks will dampen the industry's recovery. At least 3 ships have travelled through Station Pier in the last week, and Australia is set to welcome 46 international cruise liners over summer.
The Majestic Princess set sail for Hobart late today. Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
Turkey's president says a bomb blast in Istanbul appears to be the work of terrorists. 6 people were killed and dozens injured in the explosion on a busy shopping strip. The local governor claims the bomber was a woman who was seen sitting on a bench 40 minutes before the blast. The suspect has been arrested. And Tesla has launched an urgent investigation into what caused a car to speed out of control through a street in China. 2 people were killed and 3 injured before the car crashed into a parked truck. The driver's family claims the car's brakes would not respond. Tesla is urging caution, saying its data shows the car's brake pedal was never engaged. King Charles has led a service in London remembering the Commonwealth's war dead. There was an added poignancy this year with a war ongoing in Europe and the first Remembrance Day ceremony since the Queen's death.
On a foggy morning in the heart of the British capital, a solemn-looking monarch leads the nation, remembering those who have served the country and Commonwealth. At the same place the Queen came to year after year to honour the dead, King Charles laid a wreath, its design paying tribute to those used by his mother and grandfather, watched on by the Queen Consort and Princess of Wales, supported by his son and siblings. The late Queen considered Remembrance Sunday to be one of the most important engagements on her calendar. 9 weeks since her death, today's service at the Cenotaph was a poignant moment for the royal family. And for all those gathered, including 7 living former British Prime Ministers, the greatest number in history after a year of political turmoil and turnover. In London, Sarah Greenhalgh, 7 News.
More and more Victorians are falling victim to a health time bomb as case numbers explode. Next, the shock numbers on a grim epidemic. Also, a new plea in a cold case that was considered closed for over a decade. Why a Taronga Zoo lyrebird is sparking panic with its new vocabulary. And after sport, the big mistake that has scooter riders taking a dangerous wrong turn that's causing traffic chaos. Police have reopened a cold case investigation into the disappearance of a father. Christopher Jarvis's car was found burnt out in Warrnambool in 2006. His children are hoping to finally learn the truth.
We just want some answers. It's been painful 16 years for all of us.
Initially, the case wasn't considered suspicious, but based on new information, police now believe Mr Jarvis met with foul play. It's been a rollercoaster Monday on the share market. It came to a disappointing end, though. Here's Network Finance Editor Gemma Acton.
Thanks, Peter. Early enthusiasm petered out this afternoon with the ASX 200 closing down 12 points at 7,146. Mining stocks soared on the back of higher commodity prices, but not enough to lift it into the green. Bitcoin continues to drop. It has now slumped to its lowest in more than 2 years. While oil prices are higher, that is after China eased some COVID restrictions. And by tomorrow, the global population should crack 8 billion people. It took just 11 years to add the last billion. That's the quickest increase on record. But the pace should slow from here. We're not forecast to hit 9 billion people until 2037. Peter.
Thanks, Gemma. New data confirms the number of diabetics in Australia has doubled in the past 20 years. Poor lifestyle choices are being blamed, with doctors fearing the number could double again.
For a growing number of Australians, doing this is the new norm.
It's quick and easy.
14-year-old Molly Lucas has spent every day tackling type 1 diabetes since she was diagnosed at age 8.
So if I go low, it'll slow down or stop the insulin from travelling into me for a while until it goes back up.
And Molly's not alone. Here's what's happened with diabetes in Australia in the last 20 years. The disease has doubled. 1.3 million of us are now diabetic, and another 500,000 also have it but don't know it yet. In fact, 175 Australians are now diagnosed each day.
It's prioritising what can you do to change, and that's diet, it's exercise, it's controlling weight.
The real headache, what's ahead? 1 in 20 of us has diabetes now. That's expected to be 1 in 12 in years to come. Now, $3 billion a year to treat, then $45 billion. The number of people admitted to hospital with diabetes has risen by almost 150% over the past 20 years. Now, health experts warn that if the diabetes epidemic isn't addressed, that number could rise and put more pressure on an already struggling health system.
The challenges for the healthcare system with diabetes is just that it is increasing at such a huge rate.
Liam Tapper, 7 News.
The Australian lyrebird is known as the ultimate mimic, and there's one at Taronga Zoo that learnt new words during the recent emergency when 5 lions escaped. That is the bird. The zoo may have to put up a warning sign to alert visitors to the false alarm. They are very clever birds. Sport is next with Tim Watson and Tim. England can smell blood.
They can, Mitch. The new world champions have already shifted their focus to toppling Australia, and it was an Aussie cricket great in enemy territory who led their celebrations. That's coming up after the break. Hear from the Magpies star on his road to recovery. See the Socceroos World Cup home away from home, and one of the craziest finishes in American sport. Welcome back. Dave Warner has revealed he could retire from Test cricket within 12 months in a bid to extend his international career. With Glenn Maxwell in hospital, the Aussie one-day squad is gathering in Adelaide as England celebrates its place on top of the world.
The undisputed white ball kings, England, now the holders of both the T20 and One-Day World Cups. As Joss Buttler braved Melbourne's grey skies at Brighton Beach, the rest of the triumphant England squad went their separate ways after a long night of celebration at the MCG.
Yeah, the dressing room was definitely buzzing last night, plenty of singing and dancing, and Mike Hussey made a pretty good account of himself as well, and certainly enjoyed his reign out there.
Ben Stokes cemented his place as one of England's greatest.
It's Ben Stokes with the winning runs. Who else? It's always Ben Stokes.
His clutch, unbeaten half-century was the difference as Pakistan, blunted by an injury to spearhead Shaheen Shah Afridi, couldn't deny Stokes another match-winning moment.
Yes, it's been a good one.
Former Australian women's coach Matthew Mott with arguably the rarest feat of all.
Has it sunk in for you yet that you're a World Cup winning coach for both women and men?
Oh, not really. I mean, yeah, we sort of, when you're in a bubble like this, you sort of just get the job done and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, I've received a lot of messages from family and friends.
36-year-old David Warner weighing up how he spends his twilight cricketing years.
Test cricket will probably be the first one to fall off. That's how it's going to pan out. Potentially could be my last 12 months in Test cricket. 2020 cricket, I love the game, and Now I'll be looking to get to 2024.
England's white ball revolution with separate coaches to the test team, leaving Australia in the dust.
The split roles makes a lot of sense. I think it's a lot to ask of people to be away from your family and friends for 11 months of the year, and so I'll stick by that. Definitely think it's the way forward.
Andrew McCormack, 7 News.
Collingwood star Taylor Adams has revealed he still needs treatment from the serious groin injury that ended his finals campaign. The Pies midfielder with a few weeks up his sleeve before day one of pre-season.
Back on track after another long layoff, Taylor Adams has a point to prove.
I've been injury prone over the last couple of years, and I just want to prove to myself that I can still play some really good footy.
A serious adductor injury suffered in Collingwood's qualifying final kept the mid out of action for 10 weeks. He still requires more treatment.
It's a series of injections to help strengthen the regions. Might even get done next week before we start back, and as I said, the downtime from that's only 4 or 5 days.
But it's the pain of missing Collingwood's run to the prelim that really burns.
Although the mental strain was difficult, I feel like my body's in a really good position now to have a good pre-season and hopefully start the season well.
Adams linked up with recruit Tom Mitchell, who will help shoulder the load in the engine room next season.
I've probably done the bulk of our inside work over the last 3 or 4 years, so to have someone like him, he'll come straight in and help our midfield.
Jack Ginnivan and Isaac Quainer were also in ahead of schedule.
Stay tuned, we're feeling good. We're feeling good this year, let's go.
First to fourth year players are due back on November 28. Natalie Yannidis, 7 News.
The Socceroos have settled in at their training base in Qatar ahead of the World Cup. A high-performance training centre turned into an Aussie oasis.
This is home for the Socceroos over the next few weeks. The Aspire Academy in Doha, decorated in green and gold.
I think it makes us feel like we're at home with all the, green and gold colours.
The 23-man squad slowly filtering in. Milos Jedinak with some advice to the 17 Aussies at the World Cup for the first time.
There's millions of footballers around the world, so you have to know how fortunate you are to be here.
The Socceroos kick off their campaign against France Wednesday next week. Manchester United beat Fulham 2-1 in their final game before the World Cup break, but it's getting ugly for Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yes, I feel betrayed, and I felt that some people that don't want me.
Daniel Ricciardo caused chaos on the opening lap in Brazil, his second last race for McLaren.
Daniel Ricciardo makes contact there with Kevin Magnussen, and there's a second contact, and they're both out of the race.
I don't think there's anything worse than a lap 1 incident.
George Russell took the checkered flag, his first victory in Formula One. They're calling it the game of the year in the NFL.
Oh my goodness! Justin Jefferson, the catch of his life!
The Vikings clawed their way back against the Bills from 10 points down to level scores. It was then decided in overtime.
An interception! The Vikings with the knockout blow!
And Melbourne's Josh Giddey joined Wilt Chamberlain as the only 2 players to record triple-doubles in their first 2 games at Madison Square Garden.
Got it, another 3-pointer.
The young guard hit 24 points in the Thunder's win over New York. Tim Hipsley, 7 News.
And Greg Norman is bringing his breakaway golf tour down under. The Sharks spruiked the life-changing benefit of his Saudi-backed live tour at today's launch.
I've had more wives come up to me this entire year and give me the biggest hug with a tear in their eye, saying, thank you for making my husband so happy. We are a family. We're building the game of golf as a force for good.
The event will begin on April 21, just 2 weeks after the Masters. We don't get a lot of high-level golf down here anymore. That's going to be a great tournament.
Yeah, fans have been starved for top-level golf here for ages, and not just because of COVID, of course.
And you'll be there?
Well, we'll wait and see about that, Tim. Thank you very much indeed. A growing number of e-scooter riders are dicing with death heading onto major roads and even into tunnels. Food delivery drivers are among the offenders, with many blaming their navigation systems.
Riding without a helmet and without a care for the law, dozens of Victorians are dicing with death on major roads.
Transurban has unfortunately responded to 44 incidences of scooter and bicyclists on our network this year alone. This includes both on our open road and even in our tunnels.
Hitting a toll road on 2 wheels is a worrying new trend, but Transurban sees all, with more than 600 cameras across our major roads monitored in real time around the clock.
Transurban has got eyes on the road 24/7. We do notice through our systems that a cyclist is on our network.
Life-saving for the cyclist, but a major inconvenience for other drivers.
It is really frustrating for all drivers out there that, if we do have to close a lane and lower the speed for these cyclists or scooter users, that it does cause significant impact to everyone.
People who ride e-scooters on major roads don't only risk serious injury, but hefty fines of up to $1,000. Among the worst offenders, food delivery drivers. This man captured travelling against traffic. Transurban says most meal couriers blame their navigation apps.
And we do encourage anyone that's on a bike or on a scooter to make sure the app on their phone is set to bike, to make sure that they do not get onto our network.
Jodie Lee, 7 News.
Jane Bunn is next with the forecast. And Jane, we've had torrential storms and gusty winds. What's next?
Well, Mitch, temperatures, they're about to plummet. We have a chilly Tuesday on the way. Now I'll show you when it'll warm up again next.
Tonight on the latest from 7 News, Joe Biden's high-stakes meeting with Xi Jinping. Full analysis from political editor Mark Riley as the world's most powerful leaders meet in Bali. Weather emergencies hit multiple states, what you need to know. And meet the cyclist on an ice-cold mission to ride across Antarctica. Join us tonight at 11:10.
Hello again. Cast your mind back to the bitter chill of Cup Day. We'll have a repeat of that tomorrow. On the weekend, we had a tropical air mass over us. And instability turns that humid air into heavy thunderstorms, impacting those directly underneath. 88 millimetres was the biggest fall up at Arthur's Seat, but only 4 was recorded at the airport. Now we have a cold air mass coming in. Cold air can't hold as much water, so there's no more heavy rain for a while. Instead, it's showery with wintry hail, even snow on the ranges. Today began on 13 and only made it up to 17 before the next burst of wet weather arrived. That began a late morning, leading to a wet lunch and plenty of showers passing through this afternoon. Showers start and stop and deliver different amounts from one location to the next. 27 millimetres in Avalon since 9 a.m, across the bay in Hastings just 2. We've turned cool and parts of Melbourne are starting to feel the chill that's on its way. The feels-like temperatures indicate that moisture is disappearing from the air and that wind has some bite. A low moved off the coast overnight, bringing rain and heavy storms to the central coast. That moved away this morning. Then a trough brought cooler showers streaming through, the old rumble of thunder. But the air mass is cooler, so the rain can't be torrential anymore, no longer a month's worth in just an hour. Here's the low and today's trough, but up next is the cold outbreak. A cold front is passing through overnight. The air in behind that has come straight up from Antarctica. High pressure ridges into the north, so it's cold but dry there. This wet weather focus is in the south of the state. By Wednesday, still lots of showers crossing the south, but it doesn't add up to much. Our next chance of tropical heavy rain, that's later on Saturday. We're in a break until then. Around the nation tomorrow, 24 for Sydney before late showers. Warm sunshine for Brisbane and Perth. Cold sunshine for Canberra, cold or mostly cloudy in Adelaide. Hobart, the low is just offshore, so there's 30 to 50 millimetres of rain for them. To Victoria, widespread showers on and south of the ranges. That falls as snow down to about 800 metres. Wintry hail below that. Only isolated showers making onto the northern plains. It is cold for mid-November. Closer in, cold in breezy to strong southwesterly winds. Widespread showers. They're mainly afternoon in the west, and it is cold enough for wintry hail. The city is peaking at just 14. It'll be 11 or 12 for much of the time, feeling like just single digits. Lots of showers passing through. On the 8-day outlook, we repeat on Wednesday, cold, lots of showers passing through. It starts to recover on Thursday. Friday, great, sunny and 23. Dry all day Saturday, but on Saturday night into Sunday morning, that's our next chance of torrential rain coming through. Peaking at just 14 tomorrow and feeling even colder. Lots of showers passing through. We've got that for the next 2 days, Mitch.
And we've got another 14 next week.
Yes, after that next big burst of wet weather, the potential for that over the weekend.
This is unbelievable.
Up and down, that's what we do.
Incredible spring. Thank you, Jane. Now, here's what's on Sunrise in the morning.
Thanks, Beach. Tomorrow on Sunrise, it's an All-Star Tuesday.
Foxy Ladies Kath and Kim, Australian Idol judge Amy Shark, BAFTA winner Kerry Mulligan.
See you in the morning, Melbourne.
And that's the way it is this Monday, the 14th of November. Thanks for your company. For now, from the 7 News team, good night.